Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January of 2023, you will know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversation surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Now, why is that important? Think about it. There's so many things that are going on in the world that we just don't have answers to. And then we don't have people to talk to share with. And it starts a pattern of negative things, negative occurrences. And the only way that I believe that we can get past those things, one, you got to trust and have faith in God. And two, you have to have a way to be able to talk about it. And that's why Embracing the Fight exists. And of course, you all know I started my journey off by talking about my journey through thyroid cancer. And if you haven't been listening, since January 2023, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in August of 2022, and I actually had surgery in December of 2022. But all of my margins are not yet clear, but I trust God that I am healed and I will be shouting on here, when I get all of my results back. But if you have a testimony, if you have a story, if you have something that you want to share that you think can help others to heal, help others to grow, to get people to change their mind about some of the things that they're, going to step out in the world and do today. Because, somebody is right now is sitting there thinking about driving the wrong way on the highway because they want to end their life, not thinking about the family or the lives that they're going to affect when they decide to do that. And then if you notice, those people that tend to do that sort of thing, they live. And then on top of all the stuff they were already dealing with, now they have to live with the fact that they killed someone else in their moment of despair. So let's work together as a community to help these sorts of things to stop happening. And the way we do that is we talk about it first. And then if somebody comes up to you and tells you something that, could cause them to be suicidal or cause them, to hurt someone else, take the time to talk to them, to guide them to get help. Don't just tell them, oh, yeah, you can go down here to like a behavior health facility like River's Edge or something that's in Macon, Georgia. I mean, come on, sometimes kindness is what can change, a person's thoughts, their plan. Imagine if you were considering suicide and you had someone just come touch your hand, hold your hand, or give you a hug and say, hey, let's go talk to someone. And they spend that time with you until you get to where you truly believe that there is a way out. That's what embracing the fight is all about. I hope that by every week, every episode that I come on, that I touch at least one heart, one soul, to where people open up and talk about the things they're going through. And they also notice when other people are going through and they don't turn a blind eye. Now that I've said all that, have you subscribed to Embracing the Fight? Yes. Okay. Thank you to all my subscribers. But if you haven't, you can still do it. Just click below, see down there where it says subscribe. Please subscribe. And then you can also follow me on Facebook at Embracing the Fight. Instagram is Embracing the Fight _. But on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook is all Embracing the Fight. All right. So let's talk about today's episode 120, when reality sets in. So I kind of wanted to bring this, up. I had a friend in high school who just lost her son to gun violence. I don't know, the situation, but I know the young man was an upstanding citizen. he was in college, but I remember, when he was growing up, how good he was like in sports, football, all those sorts of things, track. But his mom was fast because, I thought I was fast, but yeah, she was very, very, very fast. And you can see that he got a lot of her abilities. But just imagine you you don't expect your children, to leave before you do. And he was 24 years old. Imagine having to say goodbye when he probably stopped by the house, to hug her and kiss her, say, Mom, I'm going out with my brother and a couple of friends. And they just go to a regular bar and grill, but a bunch of people end up losing their lives and several more were injured. Regardless of the circumstance, this is a different type of reality that my friend will have to deal with going forward because she will not get the opportunity to see a lot of the milestones in his life because he's no longer here. So, other than grief, when we think about reality, when it finally sets in, 9 times out of 10, it starts off with aging because you start noticing that you can't do certain things physically anymore. So let me give you an example. Imagine if you were a college track star and you were a, I don't know, quarter miler, or you ran like, I don't know, a mile. And imagine for 20 years after you got out of college, you didn't even look at a track. You didn't run, you didn't do anything. And then you get to your family reunion and everybody's racing and stuff. And then people remember, how fast you were. And oh, I want you on my team because I know we're gonna win if it's a relay race. Then you get out there and you literally get blown off of the track. The reality is you've aged and you haven't been exercising or doing anything. So your mind has not caught up to the reality of things. But at that moment, I'm sure you could hear in your head and your heart, like, man, I let those people beat me, people that should never beat me. But why is that? Who's to say that whoever beat you wasn't younger? Was it someone who exercised regularly or someone who, was like a track enthusiast and they decided this is what I want to do? You find yourself saying, you know what? The reality of it is that I'm old, I'm out of shape, I didn't train. You start saying all these things when it's not necessarily your reality. And the reason I say that is because I was looking on YouTube and I saw um, a lady on, she was, her name, Ida Keeling. She was 100 years old and she was still racing. She was still out on the track. She since passed away. She passed away at the age of 106. But she didn't started running, when she was a child, when she was young. She started running when she was 67 years old. Her daughter is the one who convinced her, to start trying to, be in better health, better shape. And it worked out for her very well. Why is that? Because the reality had set in for her that she didn't think that she was going to be physically able anymore to do, certain exercises. And the operative word here is think. So that's when we go to our mindset. So when you start thinking about things or thinking against things, your reality of what you think or believe is what sets in. Now, that lady is 100 years old and she thought she could do it and she did it. So how is it that some of us are 25, 35, 45, 55, and we can't even get out of the bed to try to do something that will make us physically better. It's all because of what's in our mind. What are you feeding your mind? What are you telling yourself each and every day? I mean, sure, you could probably sit there and think wonderful stuff, but never act. So when it gets to that point, what I would say is you definitely need to talk to someone because I see people, all the time. Like when I'm in the gym, I'll see some ladies just watching, everybody else work out, and then they sit there and sit there and sit there, but they never lift, they never walk, they never run, they never do anything, and then they leave, and I can hear them talking on the phone saying, "Well, I was in the gym." Sure, you were in the gym, but you weren't utilizing the equipment to get to what you're trying to reach. So that's a false sense of reality. You can't just go to a gym or to a building and just expect it to make your body, better. You have to work at it. You have to believe. You have to know. It has to start in your mind. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I've been walking like maybe 3 miles, each day. So yesterday, I decided I wanted to walk 4.5 miles and I wanted to do it, in less than an hour and a half. And I was sitting here saying, well, it's hot. And I had left my water in my car. And the first lap was fine. The second lap was fine. But when I started getting to that third lap, my body was like, you know what, you thirsty. You need to stop before you pass out and these people have to come get you. But just your luck, you're going to pass out in a corner or something. And nobody's going to come by and see you, but somebody's dog going to be licking you on the face to wake you up. Whatever. Anyway, I kept telling myself, you can do this. It's just one more, time around, and you're already past the hardest part of this course. So I continued to walk. And then when I realized at the end of the 4.5 miles, I still had energy. I went home, I took a shower, I went to the store. I did, several things that I wanted to do, and I was not exhausted. And then on top of that, I didn't eat anything. And usually I like candy. I like sweet stuff. I'm sitting here saying, something's wrong because I don't have a taste for it, at the moment. Not with the increased walking and the exercise and playing more tennis. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a taste for it at the moment. But anyway, that just let me know that if I can change my mindset, no matter how old I am, no matter what physical disability that I may have, that there's always an opportunity, to do better. So I was watching this young man on Facebook, and I don't know how old he is, but his dad calls him Buddy, and he has scoliosis. And his scoliosis is so bad that when he sits down, his back almost makes us see, and it looks so painful. But his father is there every moment. And he's showing people, how he can manipulate and straighten his son so that once he gets to, a certain age, they'll be able to do the surgery to put those rods in to straighten his back. But not only is he physically manipulating his son's back, he is constantly building and encouraging his son, showing him ways. Like, for instance, he was in his little wheelchair, and he said, when you're not with me, sometimes you're going to have some difficulties in your life that you have to overcome. And he said, for instance, this curb. And, we able-bodied folks who are walking around regularly see this curb is what, about 6 inches? You just step up and keep on going. You don't even think anything about it. Well, this young man had to figure out how to lift the front of his wheelchair, place his feet, lean forward, rock enough to where he could get up onto the curb without either falling back, falling forward, or falling out, of his chair unassisted. And the whole time his dad was saying, Buddy, you got it. This is what you got to do. And he was coaching him and coaching him and coaching him, but he didn't make it on top of the curb. And he looked at his daddy and he was like, Daddy, I didn't make it. You know what his father told him? He said, we don't always make it on our first try, but you don't give up. You keep fighting. You keep going. You keep trying to do it. We'll do what we can to get you strong. And you know that little boy was like, okay, Daddy, I trust you. The next time I saw a video, what was he doing? He was pulling his wheelchair up, getting onto the curb. He was going up ramps. He was doing all these different things, all because his mindset changed. He had someone that supported, loved, and believed in him just as much as he believed in himself. And he was able to do it. And he's a child. So imagine us as adults, what we can do, considering that we're able-bodied. What's holding us back? It's our mental. So then another thing that when reality sets in and affects us when it comes to aging is our emotions. So think about it like this. You have been, I don't know, with your family the entire length of your life. And then all of a sudden, your brothers and sisters start passing away. And you start seeing your friends pass away. And then you started to, get lonely. Then you implode because you feel like there's nothing out there, for you. There's nothing for you to do because you're at this point where people are telling you you're too old to drive. You're too old, to go on a trip by yourself. You're too old to, I don't know, start anything new. Well, I was watching South Carolina State University graduation, and there was a music major that walked across the stage at 80 years old. 80 years old. And he got his first bachelor's degree in music. Now, how is this possible? He said, my reality is this is my goal. This is what I want to do with my life. Even though it was delayed, I refuse to let this be my reality of denial. I will not be denied. And then he was driving over an hour. I think it might have been an hour and a half to get to class. Some people won't drive 20 minutes to get to class because they say it's too far. And that's all because their reality is totally different from this man's reality. This man saw it, thought it, put a plan in action, then he did it. Now he has a degree in music, something that he's probably dreamed of his entire life. So when reality sets in, regardless of how old you are, or regardless of what physical disability you may have, or regardless of what the naysayers have said or spoken into your life, it all comes down to one thing. It comes down to the belief you have in yourself. So let's talk about life performance. You know, think about it when you were a child, you dreamed of, oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to own my own business. Oh, I want to be a dancer. I want to be a singer. I want to be a track star. I want to be an NFL player. I want to be the person that discovers the cure for cancer. What happened to those dreams? You set goals, and then when those goals didn't, come to fruition, you kind of let it go. A lot of people say, you know what, my dreams and goals didn't pay the bills, so I got a job. And then you look at yourself 20 years down the road and you see those people that follow their dreams, follow their heart, and it's a whole different world. Something that you've never experienced, something you've never seen before. But it was all because you thought that your reality was tied to everyday expenses and everyday living, when in actuality or in reality, it's all tied to what you believe you can do and what you actually do. So think about it like this. When you were a child and you were dreaming, when did it happen that you stopped dreaming? You stopped believing that you could do what God had placed in you to do. Some life event or some person or something happened that caused you to stop believing that you could do the very thing that you were destined to do. For instance, I know people that played sports in college, and one of them in particular, he blew his knee out. And after that, he gave up on his dream, of playing football. And then you look at all these different NFL players that have had these horrendous, injuries, like his name, Nick Chubb. Like everybody saw that. That was horrible. And you automatically thought, okay, he's not going to ever play again. Mm-mm. If you believe and you put in the work, you can play again. You can do it. So the question is, what causes you to give up on your dream? What part of reality, or what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you saying that's causing you to push yourself out of the running for your very own dream? I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me when someone has a gift and they don't use the gift at all, but they know they had a gift and they know it can make a difference. They know of the goodness that it will bring, but instead, they just hold on to it. I'll never understand that. Now, I know you're probably thinking you love to write and you're an unpublished author and all these different things. I'm working on it. Sure, I love to write. Yes. My reality tells me that I will be a published author soon. I haven't given up, on that. I refuse to give up. If you know me, you know that give up on anything. I will ask you the same question 100 ways to get what I'm trying to get to. And no, it's not manipulation. I am not a manipulative person. I am just driven and I believe in whatever it is that I'm asking you to do or I'm asking you to be a part of. That's all. So I've never given up on my dreams, on my goals. Yes, I've taken, some jobs that have changed the trajectory of my life, but I still believe that everything or every gift that God has placed in me, that I will use it, effectively. And then people are going to say, oh, well, you don't know how much time you have left on earth. That is true. But as long as I continue to work for it and I continue to believe, it can happen before I leave. If it doesn't, then you know what? I put my best effort together. I'm happy. All right. So then let's think about the other side, of reality. You've gotten, the aging, your life performance. What about your relationship? You thought you'd be married at 20 and you had your little house full of kids and your humongous house and your privacy fence, and it didn't happen. So what do you do? Do you shy away from crowds and people because you don't want to get into those conversations when folks say, hey, why didn't you get married? Or, oh, it must be something wrong with her, or must be something wrong with him because they didn't get married. But truth be told, some people just never got asked. Not because they aren't great people, not because, they're not wonderful. Sometimes you just haven't met, that person. Now, it could be many reasons that you haven't met the person now. It could be, you don't get out because it's not like, well, I ain't gonna say that because that may happen. Um, it's not like there's gonna be somebody that's gonna drop in on your front porch and say, "Hey, I'm here to take you out." You, it's got to be some kind of effort. You got to be, in a place where you can be seen, because even if you do it like online, where you're putting your photo out there and you have, a dating profile, you're putting yourself out there. I'm saying these folks that sit at home that do remote work, like you're a remote worker, you don't go out, you order your groceries, you order your food, you watch church online. Like, how are you going to meet someone if you don't go out in the general population? And the reason that a lot of people, have shied away from going out into the general population is fear. Because I'll give you an example. I know a lady that she had been married for like 10, 15 years, and her husband passed away. Well, when her husband passed away, she met a guy that was basically love bombing her, and she was so close to choosing to date this man. But she happened to run into some people that knew the whole story about the relationship that he previously had, and that lady dodged a bullet. But once she dodged a bullet, she withdrew. That's not what you're supposed to do. Don't don't take yourself out of society because of one bad apple. Because if that were the case, you realize how many people wouldn't like mingle, they wouldn't go out, they wouldn't do anything. And there's so many great and amazing people that's out there that's waiting to, really meet someone. So then you got those people that were in relationships that failed. Those who did get married, but after, long periods of time that you've been with someone, like say y'all were together, you know, 25 years, and then you get a divorce, or 30 years. And the crazy thing was a lot of that was happening, after COVID. It was like, what? But then I thought about it. The person that you married 20 years or 25 or 30 years ago is not the same person that you know now. Life has happened. Your relationship should have evolved. Something positive should have or could have come from this. But in some cases, people grow apart. There's infidelity. There's a host of things that could have happened that caused you, to move apart. And that just happens to be some people's reality. But I say after you have divorced, you don't have to stay divorced. You don't have to live like, oh, everybody I meet is going to be just like my ex, or people are going to think that I did something wrong, or I was the one that cheated, or I did this, or I did that, because there's always two sides to, the story. And they just don't put themselves out there. And that in itself, is a tragedy. Because even if you were the one, that cheated, who says you can't change? Now, I know that there are some people out there that can't change, and they know they ain't gonna change. Now, y'all need to stay single. But the ones of you who cheated, when you were young, or you just had a moment of indiscretion, because we're not gonna say it was a mistake or it was a choice. You chose to do what you did. But I'm saying you had that moment of indiscretion and you've changed. And all anything like that happens in a relationship is a response to some type of trauma. So once you go through and you do the work, to get yourself, healed mentally and emotionally, then you can have, some wonderful, viable relationships. That's the reality of it. You don't have to stay, you know, who you were. You can be, the best version of yourself by doing work on yourself. All right. And then you got, the single people that's out here. So you got folks that when I say they are living their best life, they're traveling, they're doing everything. And their married friends are like, man, every time I turn around, you going somewhere, you doing something. The reality of it all is those single people have decided that life is amazing and I'm going to ride it until the wheels fall off. Then you got some single folks that are still holding out and hoping, to be married. And I don't know, what they're doing or how they're doing it, but they tend to get to a point where you notice that they become like very, very emotional when you talk to them about the potential of marriage and having kids and all these different things. And I figured that's because of the environment that they are in. Because, like I said, you got some of those people that's living their best life, and then you have the other half that's waiting to live because they feel like they have to have someone to live, to be their very best self. But you don't have to have someone. So I heard Jennifer Lewis today. And when I say I love me some Jennifer Lewis, she basically was saying that she has never been married and she was engaged 4 times. But there was this one person in particular that, she was dating. And she was like, oh, he was beautiful. And, I was cute or whatever. And, we were living our best life. We were riding around in the S500. And she saw this tree that she knew that was extinct. And it was an Australian tree of some Australian species of tree. And it was pink. And when they were riding along the road and she saw it and she was just like, oh, that is such a beautiful tree. And the guy looked at her and said, you say that about every tree. At that point, she said to herself, oh, you got to go. Imagine if everybody did that when they realized that the energy between you is off, that you don't have to stay with that person. If you're dating someone who is draining you, who is always at odds with you, and or you're sitting there saying, well, he does do this or she does do this, and oh, I can get past it. You don't have to be with those people. You should find someone who matches your energy. Because who wants to be single, for the majority of their life and then get with somebody that makes their life terrible? It's like, I should just stay single. Because one thing for sure, and I'll tell you, this is from personal experience. When I was single before I married, I was happy and I was whole. And then when I got married and saw everything was, going down the tubes and everything was horrible, I got out of there. And I have been single ever since because I refuse to marry again. And I know that my energy is off, or I know that things don't match. It's like I don't want to marry someone just to be married. It has to be love. It can't be codependency. Like, say, for instance, if you work and the person you're dating doesn't work and you're paying all this person's bills and doing all these different things, then of course, this person over here who's not paying anything, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, okay, you know what? He might be crazy. He might act a little stupid, every once in a while. He's taking care of me, so I'm going to stay in this relationship. Don't do that. Love yourself more than that. Because think about what could happen if you do marry them and they start getting violent or they start doing, some other things. Then what is your way out? You've basically closed yourself in and closed yourself away from your support system. And you don't, have the means to take care of yourself. And then, with the way that politics are at the moment, there's going to be, very difficult times for people who are getting any form of government assistance. And you don't want that for yourself. Now, I'm not saying, you can't be in a happy marriage or a happy relationship where one person, makes all the money and the other person takes care of the home. I'm not saying that because that's what my parents did. And they're still together, after 55 years. But they have a mutual and beneficial uh, relationship. They respect one another. They love one another. So when you have that, when one person has made all the money, then the other person has agreed, okay, I'm going to raise the children. I'm going to keep the home clean. I'm not going to drop everything on this other person. That's not codependency. That's partnership. There's a big difference between codependency. Because I hear some women, all they do is lay around and eat. They shop. They do everything. And then, everything that they want to do that helps them. But then when it comes to their home and their husband, it's like they still expecting their husband to do so many other things. And that makes no sense. Because sometimes or say vice versa, if it's the woman that's out working and the husband, is just hanging out with his friends and playing video games and doing all this stuff, eventually whoever it is that's outside of the home that's trying to build a beautiful home and everything for you, they're going to feel, resentment. And the reality of codependency is going to set in and they're really going to resent you, at that point, because they're like, why aren't you trying to do anything to better yourself or to better our family or to better our home? Why are you always just playing on games or just shopping on, online or just laying around eating? It's like, I'm out here doing my best for us. And this is what you do in return. It's just not right. And that reality is what causes a lot of divorces or causes some people to, want to walk away, but they don't, and they're miserable. And then if you notice, if a person stays miserable, long enough, it begins to affect their health. So instead of staying in a relationship because you're codependent, help yourself, learn a trade, write a book, go back to school, get up and exercise, start an exercise group, do something that is beneficial that will bring joy and happiness to your relationship. Or otherwise, the reality might end in divorce. Now, not telling anybody who's watching this, if you have a person that's codependent on you to leave them. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying communicate with them. Tell them, these are the things that I wish that you could help me with. Or I've noticed XYZ. Can we talk about this? Because who wants to be in a relationship with someone that they resent? And imagine you're the one that they resent. You come to the door all smiling, ready to hug them, and then they just look at you like, you again. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm just saying, reality has a weird way of setting in, but when it does, how will you handle it? When it comes to aging, will you trust your mind? Will you continue to fight? Will you believe? When it comes to your life performance, will you follow your dreams and try to meet your goals? Or when it comes to relationships, will you really look at yourself and choose the higher energy that's in you? What are you going to do? Because the reality of it all is it's based on the choice that you make. As always, I would like to say thank you so much for watching this episode of Embracing the Fight when reality sets in. And as always, I want you all to have it absolutely amazing day.